So this to me is an aesthetic physique and this to me is an anorexic physique, right? I want to make a clear distinction because if you want to go after that second physique, then this video isn't for you. But if you want to go after the first physique, which is similar to the one that I've sort of built, then keep watching this video because I'm going to give you the fastest way that I think you can get there. So I'm going to go over 5 key points. They sort of follow one after each other, so it'd be best if you watch it step by step because then you'll get a really good understanding as to what to do depending on where you are. Okay, so the first thing I want to touch on is this, is you may actually need to stop focusing on aesthetics because you may be in a place where focusing on trying to be aesthetic is causing more harm than good. I want to give you this analogy. Imagine you've got a statue that you want to carve out of rock. In order to carve this statue, the piece of rock that you have has to be bigger than the statue itself, right? Because you're chipping into it. So you can't create a rock out of nothing. So if you're 15, 16, 17, 18, you're young or you're naturally skinny, the first thing you need to do is forget about aesthetics and focus on building strength and muscle. You need to put size on. And even if you gain a little bit of fat, that's fine. As long as it's not unhealthy, as long as it's not like detrimental to you, then just put it on. Focus these few years on putting some good size on because then you've got that rock which you can carve, okay? And now this is especially true if you're young because if you're young and you're still growing, your body needs that nutrients and calories to develop and fully grow to become a man. So you cutting yourself to get rid of a tiny bit of belly fat is not the best idea in my opinion, right? What I would recommend is that you stick it out, wait and keep building some size so then by the time you're 21, you've got some good size there. Now you're ready, you're healthy, you're active and you can cut in a healthy manner to actually reveal the muscle that you've built. So the second point is key muscle groups, right? Now this is totally subjective, okay? It's important to understand that there's no one aesthetic physique. It depends on who's talking, right? So in my opinion, this is what I would say the most aesthetic. So the first is abs, second is shoulder and upper chest, third is quads, and fourth is lats, right? Now, on a very, very important side note, do not just ignore completely the other muscle groups just because I've not mentioned it here. That's a very, very stupid thing to do. Not training a whole muscle group can cause imbalances, which can cause postural issues, pains and strains, even more likely to be injured, and never mind, you're not going to look good anyway, right? So there's a lot of issues with that. So even legs or anything, just don't ignore muscle groups completely. What I want you to do is prioritize the muscle groups, and so you put a bit more emphasis into these areas so that you can build them up faster, okay? So the reason I mentioned these muscle groups is because it creates something called an X-frame, right? That means it gives you the illusion of a very narrow waist when you have these muscles built up. Now that's what's going to make you look more aesthetic, more masculine and give you that nice V-taper. So keep that in mind, focus on building that X-frame, right? Now the best exercises for these muscle groups are as follows. So for abs, I would say the cable crunches because you're getting a really good stretch and you'll be able to load it with weight. You got to understand with the abs, doing 100 sit-ups a day isn't going to cut it in my opinion because your abs are keeping you up all the time, right? It is literally the trunk of your whole body. So you just doing lightweight and not really testing it that much isn't going to grow. This is what I found, right? Especially if you want to have thick, blocky abs, what you have to do is train it with weight and progress it just as you would any other muscle group. Next is shoulder and upper chest. The best exercises I have for upper chest and shoulders 100% incline Smith machine press and body weight dips or weighted dips if you can do them. Goated, right? With the Smith machine, super nice and controlled. You can just focus on it and the injury risk is very low. And with the dips, it's just a sick movement because it's getting you up, it's getting your lower chest and building your triceps and your front delts, and literally you're getting all of these things work together in one, and it's a very good body weight movement as well, right? And then for side delts, I'd 100% go for lateral raises, and you can pick your variation. Yeah, you can do dumbbells, you can do cables, you can see it standing, play around with it, right? Have fun and just really get used to the mind muscle connection, especially with this exercise with lateral raises, right? The third is for quads, and I found this has been the best one for my leg development recently, is heel elevated squats. Because when it comes to growing your quads, a lot of research has shown, and even from my own experience, is that little stretch you're going to get at the bottom. When I mean stretch, I mean literally making your hamstrings touch your calves when you're in that bottom position. If you can do that within a leg press or you can do that within a squat, go for it. But with the heel elevation, because naturally guys are not as flexible in their hips and their ankles, you're not as mobile, having the heel elevation basically gives you a little bit more mobility so you can go a bit deeper, so we can get that really good stretch on your quad. So that's good, that's one for quad. And then for lats, for any back exercise, really upper back, I would just stick with pull-ups. Work up until you can get 3 sets, 10, 12 pull-ups really, really clean. So that should be the aim that you're working towards, because if you can do that, then you can just build a nice back without having to do much else, in my opinion. Now, I've linked a routine for you in the description, so you can just use that and take that and apply it, because I think it'll be very, very useful for you. Next, number 4 is must-dos, right? The first must-do you have to think when you get in aesthetic is perfection of form, right? We are not building for power, or we're not building to be strongmen, right? What you want to do is focus on hitting that target muscle, and this comes with practice, right? Because if you're doing, for example, an incline chest press and you can feel your shoulders more, then that means you're not hitting the target muscle as much as you should be. So you need to learn how to, retract your shoulders, pin that back, and then press so you can hit your upper chest, right? These little cues are going to be massive for you to grow the areas that you're targeting. So that's the first thing, right? Maximize your form, really get good at it. Next is to stick to one routine. A big mistake I see people make is just jumping from one routine to the next constantly. The problem is now you're going to have to relearn new exercises. So you're cutting your progression short, so you have to start again, okay? Make sure you stick to one routine for at least 8 to 12 weeks, because then it gives you enough time to progress each exercise, learn how to do them properly, and actually milk the gains from that routine instead of just jumping from one to another. The third must do if you want to become aesthetic is you need to be tracking progress weekly, okay? That comes in terms of how much weight you lifted, how many reps you've progressed on, your rest times, even your physique in terms of how it's looking, your weight, is your body weight changing, is your fat levels changing? You have to be tracking these things, because what gets measured gets managed. Yeah, that's it. So if your goal is to become aesthetic, you have so many different factors that you need to be looking into, and if you're not measuring any of them, I find it hard to believe that you actually, how would you even know if you're on track, okay? So make sure you're tracking progress throughout this, especially progressive overload, because that is where the muscle growth lies, right? Like I mentioned, if you're naturally a bit skinny like me, then the first thing that you want to do is build that muscle, so make sure you're tracking your progress all the way through. And number 5, the most important really, is your relationship with food, okay? Because in my opinion, in order to be aesthetic, you need to be lean, especially if you're natural like me. You need to be lean to be able to look good. And to be able to be lean, you need to be eating right. That is it. 80% of looking lean and having lean muscle is just eating right. So unless you have freak genetics, then you need to be eating properly. So you need to have basically a 10 out of 10 or at least 8 out of 10 healthy relationship with food, if you think about dating sense, right? If you have like a 3 out of 10 relationship with a girl, it's not going to last, okay? It's not going to work. The relationship's going to break down. If you have 5, it's average. What I would recommend if you want to be having a really healthy relationship is like 8, 9, 10. So that's where you really need to be, or what I think you should be in terms of your relationship with food. So the reason being is if you can't stick to a healthy relationship with food for a couple of years, it'll be very hard for you to build the muscle, A, B, lose fat, which are the 2 pillars really. You're holding an aesthetic physique up really is those 2 things. So you need to be able to find a way to build that relationship and do it for years. So how do you do that? How do you build a good relationship with food and do so you can stick to it for a good couple of years? The first thing is you need to learn to cook some tasty and nutritious meals, right? You don't need to be, Marco Pierre White or Gordon Ramsay, right? You just need to know a couple of simple but tasty meals that you can make repetitively, so you can actually enjoy eating the food. That's going to keep you on track way more. Next is you need to start building systems around your eating. So meal plans, meal templates, meal timings, because you want food to become more and more automated. The less you need to think about what you're going to eat, if it's automatically just healthy, then it's going to make your progress so much easier than you having to consciously think about, I need to eat this thing to lose fat, I need to eat this thing to build muscle. I promise you, once you can systemize it, your progress will just skyrocket. And the next is, I would personally, as fast as you can, minimize sugar and trans fats consumption. And you want to start making shifts to healthier food choices. I am actually taking my own advice on this right now. This is just a black coffee, no brown sugar. I've been cutting out my brown sugar, right? I'm getting used to it. So, simple examples, going from milk chocolate to having 80% dark chocolate. Instead of having sweets, have some dates. Instead of having cakes, make some oats. Instead of having fried chicken, have grilled chicken. Start making these shifts and start making it into a lifestyle and a habit, and I promise you, you'll be able to lose fat and build muscle without thinking about it, because you're automatically making the right decisions that are going to enable you to do that. And if you do these 3 things, you'll be in the top 10% in terms of people that have relationships with food, right? You'll be eating way cleaner than, I'm telling you, as a coach who's seen what people eat and seen hundreds of people, the way they train, the way their lifestyle is, I promise you, you will be way ahead of them if you just follow those 3 things. And like I said, you will maximize your progress to aesthetic physique rapid. And just one more message, bit of a wholesome message, let's say. heart to heart with you. Don't be so obsessed with other people's physiques. Get inspiration, right? I'm not one to take that away from you, but don't be obsessed with it, because the God's honest truth is no matter where you get to, you'll keep wanting more, right? I look at other people's physiques at least 20 times a day and I'm like, oh, I wish I had bigger legs, bigger calves, bigger arms, bigger shoulders, chunkier abs. That will just not end, right? You'll keep wanting more and more and more. So don't think once I get to this physique, it will just go away, because it will still be there. Do it for yourself. Do it for your self-respect and your confidence, so you can become more attractive, so you can, become a better character, so you can become more charismatic, so you can look good and feel good. And then compare who you were 1 year ago to who you are now. Don't compare who you are now to who someone else is 5 years, 6 years, 7 years down the line, right? And even if they are in the same time period, maybe 5 years down the line, and you might be 5 years down the line, they might have crazy genetics, they might have, some different lifestyle that you don't have. So there's literally no way you can even compare yourself and that person in a scientific manner, because there's so many variables that are different. The best comparison you can actually make scientifically is to who you were before. So just do that. Look back in 3 months and say, all right, how was I looking? How was I acting 3 months ago? How am I doing now? Because if you just keep obsessing over this physique of someone else, I promise you'll never, never be satisfied. And if you can learn to do this now, your journey will become way more pleasant. And something I wish I would have learned earlier, because then you're making progress, you're feeling good, you're stronger, you're looking good, and you don't have that added pain of comparison and always trying to put yourself down in front of someone else, right? It's like Theodore Roosevelt said, comparison is the thief of joy. So build a physique for yourself, and it's something I'm working on as well. But yeah, goodbye.